Welcome to our webinar, Create Your iOS App and Publish It to the App Store. My name is Matthias Günther, I'm a product manager with Quark, and I'm going to lead you through this webinar today. I'm going to show you how you can create your own app using the new App Studio, and you've created your app content already in InDesign or QuarkXPress, and now you're ready to publish that to your own custom app using the new App Studio based on HTML5. Before we start, there's a few prerequisites that I would like to mention. First, we'll show you today how you create your app for iOS, so for iPad or iPhone, not for other platforms like Android phone or the Kindle Fire on Android tablet. We're going to show you that in a later webinar. Also, what I'm going to assume is that you've watched the webinar part 1, which means that's the webinar where we showed you how you create your content layouts, enrich them in InDesign or in QuarkXPress, and then exported that, previewed that in a browser, and maybe even previewed that in the previewer app so that you know that your content is perfect. The only thing we're going to show you here today is how you create the app, basically the player for your content. If you haven't watched the webinar part 1 for either InDesign or QuarkXPress, please go to youtube.com/myappstudiotv, and that's where you find a QuarkXPress webinar and an InDesign webinar. Just pick the one that you need. Also, what you're going to need to create an app is you need an iOS developer account or an iOS enterprise account. There's 2 that Apple offers, and you need one of them, or you can have both, of course, if you want to create both kind of apps. The iOS developer account, that's either for an individual or for a company, and that means you're going to develop or create, and you're not going to develop, that's what App Studio is going to do for you, but you're going to create an app for the public app store, so for iTunes, where your customers, your readers can either purchase an app or look at a free app and see some content. It can be magazine, newspaper, catalog, corporate brochure, or whatever you're planning to create. The other option that Apple offers you is an iOS enterprise account, and that's only for apps that you want to distribute within your own organization. So for example, you want to give your salespeople an app that they can use to see sales material, or you have corporate communication that wants to give apps to all of your employees. That's when Apple gives you your own app store and you can distribute apps within your own organization, but not externally. If you go to Apple's website, you can also see the price. The iOS developer account, so the public-facing account, is $99 per year, and the enterprise account is $299. Let's just jump to Apple's website and have a look. So let's go to developer.apple.com. That's where Apple lists these 2 options that you can have. So it's important that you take the iOS developer program, not the Mac developer program. As I said, you don't need to develop, you just need that account. So if you take that iOS developer account, the public-facing one that you can use as an individual or as a company, you enroll here, you pay $99 per year to Apple, and then you can create your apps with App Studio. That's what I'm going to show you today. Alternatively, if you want to do these in-house iOS apps, then please have a look at this one here. That's the in-house iOS apps for your enterprise. So Apple's enterprise program, $299 per year, but basically the same principle. There's a few things that you can do additionally, and we're going to show you that in a later webinar, because I think that's something really exciting, that you use apps for in-house corporate communication. For today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can use your iOS developer program, and I'm going to show you that with my individual account, just because that's what probably most of you will use. There's a few things additionally when you apply for that as a company, which basically means you can give different roles to everybody involved, that maybe somebody just can build test apps, and when it comes to deploying the app to the App Store, that's when you need a different user. Apple has pretty good help pages, so please look at that when you want to find out how to use this kind of stuff. So what's next? I'm going to show you today how you will use the 3 portals that you need to create your app and submit your app. The first one is Apple's developer portal. That's something where you will have to create some certificates and some profiles that basically identify you as a publisher, as a developer, how Apple calls it, and create some profiles for who this app is. Is it a test app that can be viewed only by you and your customers, or is it a public app that can be submitted to the App Store? The second step is you need to purchase an App Studio license using the appstudio.net website. So far, what you've seen in the first webinar, everything was free of charge. So with your 30-day test account, you could test how to create app content in InDesign or QuarkXPress. You could upload it, you could see it, preview it in a browser, preview it in the test app, and so far no cost involved. To actually create an app yourself, that's when you need one of the licenses that I explained in the first webinar. And once you've purchased the license, that's how you can create the app and test it. I'm going to show you that in a few minutes. And then the third portal that you need is Apple's iTunes Connect. Just think of that as your commercial or marketing portal to your app or for your app. That's where you set up marketing description, screenshots, everything that your customers will see in the iTunes store, so that they decide, yeah, it's worth it downloading this app, and also whether you want to charge for the app, yes or no. So that's all in Apple's iTunes Connect, and I'm going to show you how to set that up. And the last step is you're going to use a program called Application Loader, which is part of Xcode that you get when you enroll for Apple's developer program. And within that Xcode, which is normally for programming, there's only one application that we need. It's called the Application Loader. That's the program that submits your finished app to Apple. Application Loader is only available for OS X, so only for Macs, because it's part of Xcode. So if you're a Windows user, you can do a lot of these things I'm showing you today. There's one exception for sure, that's the Application Loader. You need a Mac for that. If you don't have a Mac available or don't know anybody with a Mac, you can also contact us, Quark, and we can do that for you. There is an option that you can purchase so that we can do that for you. And also some of the certificates, how to set them up to create so-called P12 files is a bit difficult on Windows. So if you have questions, just in the end, let us know or contact us via email, and we can explain you how to do that using Windows. From Mac, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm going to show you that today. So let's start. Let's set up the developer portal. So I'm on developer.apple.com, and I'll go to Member Center. And what I need to put in here is I need to put in my email address and my password, sign in. And when you set up your account, what you have already done is you will have told Apple who you are and give more detailed information about you. And the only thing we really need in this developer portal is this part, the iOS provisioning portal. That's really important because we're going to set up profiles and certificates here. So I'll click on that, and I've already created some. So I'm going to delete them and show you how to start from scratch. If ever anything goes wrong with your certificates or profiles, you can safely delete everything there. Of course, you need to be careful when you've already submitted some apps, but it's a pretty straightforward way of recreating them. That's what I'm doing here today with you. So on the iOS provisioning portal, there is a little sidebar here at the left. And basically, I'm going to go step by step and create all of these things with you. And that's what you have to set up yourself too. So the first thing is certificates. Certificates basically tell Apple or tell the app who you are as a developer or distributor of apps. I'm going to revoke my profiles here. My certificates are already created. So that's how you will see this portal. Starting fresh. I need to create one for development and one for distribution. I don't have a certificate here, so what I need to do is I need to request a certificate. And Apple now tells you how you can do that. What I need is I need keychain. So let's open keychain first. Here's my keychain where all my login items are stored and also my certificates. You can see that in the category here. I already have 2, so I'm going to delete the 2 to start from scratch here. And now I'm going to create them with you. For that, you need to go to Keychain Access. You need to go to Certificate Assistant, and you have to choose the menu item, Request a certificate from a certificate authority. So I'll choose that. I have to put in my email address here. I put in my name. The third field I will leave empty, and I will say request is saved to disk. So continue, and now I need to decide where I actually will store this. Say okay, save, and I'm done. Next thing I need to do is I need to go back to the portal, and I need to now choose that file I just created. So I'm going to choose that file here and click on choose, and I will submit. And that's basically everything I need to do for this section of the provisioning portal. You can see it says pending. If you just click on and basically refresh the portal, click on the little tab there, you can see it's actually issued. Same for distribution. So what I'm going to do here is request certificate. Apple again tells you how to do that. It's the same thing. So I'll just do choose. I'm going to upload this. I'm going to submit. Distribution is done, pending. Oh, it's issued already. Cool. So I have everything created here now in the certificate section. Next thing I need to do is devices. I have 2 devices already registered. If you want to register a new device, you just click here on add device. What you basically do here is you register your iPhones, iPads or iPods that you want to test on. You should use a device name that you can identify, for example, customer XY iPad 4, so that you know, oh, it's the iPad from my customer who I want to test the app I'm going to create. Because when you create test apps, Apple requires you to name the iPad or the device. You can name up to 100 devices. The name doesn't really matter. It should be something that is self-explanatory for you. Nobody else will see that. And then you need the device ID or UDID, how Apple calls it. And the only way how you can really find that is by connecting your device to your Mac, opening iTunes, go into iTunes, look at the serial number field for your device, click on it once, you see this 40 character numbers and character string. You press Command C to copy that without really selecting it, and then you paste it in here. And Apple also explains how to do that when you click on this link here. So once you've done that, you will see something similar to what I have done here. So you see my 2 devices here, my device IDs, and then I'm basically done in this section 2. Next one that I'm going to do is app IDs. App IDs is the app I'm going to create. You can see I already configured some here. Doesn't really matter for this step. So only thing you need to do is click on new app ID, call it something that you can remember later on what that means. Here is a description field, and what I always do is I use description fields similar to the bundle identifier, the app ID, which needs to be unique. So unique means you're going to use a reverse URL convention. And if I work for Quark, I should use com.quark. That's pretty unique already in the world. It should be only used by employees that are using they work for Quark, and then maybe my name, and then I call this App Studio Webinar. So you can see how this becomes unique. I'm just going to copy that. You could also put in here webinar app English, whatever you find more logical to use. Team ID is only important if you really work for a team. And down here, I'm going to paste this bundle ID. This is the place where it needs to be unique. And it needs to be unique in the world. So that's why I'm using that. If you use a, let's say, com, and you have a Hotmail account, then you could maybe use com Hotmail, your email address, or you have a Gmail account, com Gmail, your name, your login name, my app, or whatever. So use something that is pretty unique and identifies you. I'm going to use this com.quark.matthias.appstudiowebinar, and I'm going to leave that in my clipboard because I need that later. I will submit that. You should see it here. If I scroll down, it's going to be listed. Here, and if I mouse over, you can see the full name. There's some configurations in here, my webinar app English, which I could configure, but I don't really need to do that for App Studio. So just if you're curious, have a look in here. There's also the push notification service available that you could set up now. If you remember the former App Studio, that's where you had to configure something. You don't need to do that here because we need some, or we use something. It's called Urban Airship notifications. I'm going to show you in a later webinar how to set that up. Pass type IDs, not important at all in this provisioning portal because it's only for passbooks. The next step that's really important is the provisioning profile. And what we do here in the provisioning profile is we basically tell Apple what kind of app we create and what purpose this app has. Is it a test app or is it an app that we will submit to the App Store? I have already created some, I can leave them in here. I'm just going to go to Development, New Profile, enter profile name, and again, use something that later on makes sense to you so you know which kind of profile that is. So if I say this is Webinar English Development, then I know what that is. My certificate in here, which app ID, I call that Webinar App English, and for what devices do I want to develop that, so I can select all of the devices I have here. Sorry. I'll say submit, and you can see it's pending again, same trick, just refresh it, and you can see active. Next thing I need to do is distribution. So new profile, and here I'll create two, one for the App Store and one for testing, so for ad hoc. So again, Webinar English ad hoc, so I know later on what that is. Ad hoc means it can be tested on a device. I need to choose my app ID, which is going to be Webinar App English, and I want to test it on both of these devices. So I'm going to submit this, and there it is pending, refresh. You can see it's active. And the third one that I'm going to create here, this is my Webinar English App Store. Here I can't select devices because it's really for Apple, and the only thing I have to select here is the app ID, and I'll submit it. And also pending, refresh, and it's here. And that's really everything I need to do in this portal. Now, what I haven't done is I need to download them on my machine. So what I need here is I need to download everything I just created. And of course you could do that after if you created that. I just wanted to have it at one place to show you what you need to download. Certificates, development, I will download that. Next thing, if you haven't installed it, the Worldwide Developer Relation certificate from Apple, also download. Second thing, distribution, my distribution certificate, download, also downloaded. So 3 certificates I downloaded. I need to install them later on. I'll look at that in a second. Provisioning for each app. So certificates is something you just need to do once, regardless of how many apps you're creating, and they're valid normally for a year. So after a year, you need to maybe create a new one. Provisioning is per app. You need 3 profiles here. The development one, so I have my webinar English development, download, first one. In distribution, I have 2, one for testing and one for the App Store. They're down here, so download the App Store one and download the ad hoc one. And that's basically everything I need to do in my portal. The last thing I need to do in this section is I need to create so-called P12 files, and for that I need to install my certificate. So let's switch to the Finder. So here is all my downloads. I have my mobile provisioning profiles, so the ad hoc, the App Store, and the development one. I have the Apple WWDR, so the developer relations certificate, and I have my 2 certificates for distribution and for development. What I need to do is I only need to install these 2 here, the iOS distribution certificate and this one, and if you haven't, also the Apple certificate. So ignore the profiles for now. The easiest to actually do that is just double click them. I'll double click maybe first one, the iOS distribution certificate, double click, and you can see keychain opened and it's in here, valid. Next, this one, you can see the little green check mark, so also valid, imported, fine. And the same thing for my Apple developer relation. It doesn't go to my certificates. I'll just assume this is fine. Next I need to do is I need to export them. So I'll just go to my certificate here. I export them, choose export. So I'll export my distribution certificate as a so-called P12 file. And since this is my distribution, I should really call it distribution certificate. So later on, I'll find that. I'll save that into the same folder. I'll be asked for a password. This first dialog is really to kind of secure your files. If you give it to somebody else, I'll just ignore. So no password, I'll say okay. And the second thing here is it needs my password, my administrator password of my Mac that I just enter here. Same thing for developer, export, P12 file, and this is development. I'll just call it development. The same folder, P12, same thing here. First password empty, second one, my Mac password, and now I exported these 2 certificates here as P12. And that's all I need to do in this portal. I'm basically done now and can start configuring the second portal. So step 2 is purchase App Studio licenses and create your app and test it. Okay, next thing we do is we go to the appstudio.net portal. It's in German here, so I'll just switch that to English. I will log in. And what you see here is my publication with my issues. And I'm not going to spend any detail on that really, because that's something we showed you in the first webinar. What I want to do is I want to create my app showing that content. And if you have a test account, the first thing you need to do is actually you need to go to billing. And since I already have an account here, you're not seeing my pricing plans. So you have to decide for one and actually purchase one of the pricing plans. And then next thing we do is we go to App Manager, and you can see the different devices here. Today I'm going to show you how to build an iOS universal app, so an app that runs on iPad and iPhone or iPod. I'm going to click on Build here, and Build is actually showing you the app wizard where you can specify certain things, and some things you have to specify. I've already done some testing here, so you already see that pre-filled out, but I'm going to walk you through all of the screens and all of the elements that we see here. First thing we see here, required information, is a version number. Version number basically tells Apple when you replace the app, is that a newer version or what is the story about this thing? And it should really increase, but it doesn't really matter whether you start with 100 and then the next one you do is 200 or you do 21 or 201. I'm going to use 205 here. App ID, that's something you get from iTunes Connect. I'm going to show you that in a step later. If you don't have it by hand, we're going to walk through iTunes Connect as a third step. That's something where you find your Apple ID. It's not your email address, it has to be a number. Third thing, bundle ID. Remember, I had that in my clipboard, and that's really where I need the same bundle ID that is specified in the developer portal. Otherwise, it's not going to work here. App display name, that's the name that we're going to see on a device. So I can put in here Webinar English. Just be careful that if you make it too long, so I'm just going to do Webinar, I'll just leave it Webinar. If you make it too long, you're going to see ellipses on your device. So it might say web ... lish or something like that. And that doesn't look very professional. So test your app. You can always change it here. Test it on a device just to see whether the name works out perfectly depending on the width of the characters. You might have 13 or 15 characters. Help page URL, if you tap the help button in the app, that's where it's going to bring your customer. So when they need help, I just put forums.quark.com in here. Home screen icon, you need a 144 by 104 pixel icon PNG here. Let me just show you what I did. So I created a PNG file, very boring, 144 times 144 it says here, and we're going to see that later where that is. And I also have a splash screen landscape, which is 1536 times 2048, and a portrait one, which is the other direction here. And that's the two or the three elements that I just choose here. So I'll say choose, and I'll just choose the App Studio icon here. I'll do that for the rest. When I was preparing this webinar, I actually had a little typo here in Photoshop, and I did 1538, which didn't work. The portal then, when you try to upload this, will give you a red warning that this is not the right PNG and something is wrong with it. Also remember that you look that your PNG doesn't get too big, because obviously that's something within the app and you don't want the app to be too big. So make sure that your PNGs are actually quite small. I removed alpha channels and everything that shouldn't be in there so that my PNG remains small. Now, very important things. Distribution certificate. So what I need here is I need to have my distribution certificate. And remember, that's the things that we created. I need the P12 distribution certificate. So if I look at here, distribution P12, that's the reason why I named it that way. So it's easy for me to find that distribution certificate. Here, I could fill in the password if I had put a password into my certificate, which I didn't do. Provisioning profile, so the distribution provisioning profile. Remember, we created two. So Webinar English ad hoc mobile provision and Webinar English App Store provisioning. So that's the two I have. What I want to do is I want to test this later on my iPad. So I'm going to use the ad hoc one here. Choose. Developer certificate, going to choose my P12 development. Same here with the password, I didn't choose one. And then the development provisioning profile, we just have one. Just make sure you choose the right one. Webinar English development provisioning profile. So I'm done here. Then I have some options I configure. I could say all issues will be free, or I'll choose in-app purchase. That's probably for most magazines and newspapers, it's a common thing that the app is free and the issues will be sold. For marketing and communication, I guess you will probably have everything for free, so you might as well check that. When unpublished issues will be removed, then something that I think is really nice is, and that's only relevant when issues are free, is, for example, when the Metro app, when you test the Metro app, you can see that really well. Assume you have to run in the morning to catch the bus or whatever, and you want to see your latest Metro edition in there. You probably forget to download it every morning. So if it's free, the iPad is just going to download it as soon as there is a new issue available, and that could be at 4 o'clock while it's charging, and then when you run at 6 o'clock you already have it in there. So a really nice option to do here. You can also configure whether it's a single issue app, so the issue is embedded within the app, but that's something for kiosk you shouldn't choose. contents page, navigational bar, stuff like that. I'm just going to ignore that. I think that's self-explanatory, and we're going to maybe do a webinar later. If you want to, just let us know. Searching and bookmarking I want to have in here, so I'll check that. Social media, we have another webinar. We also have some training videos on our website where we explain how that works. Google Analytics, same thing. We're going to do a webinar on that. Subscriptions, also newsstand. Push notifications, another webinar for Urban Airship notifications. And there's a nice addition to the current App Studio. In the current App Studio, you can only do the badges showing you that there's a new issue available. With the new App Studio, you can also do custom notifications, so you could tell them the headlines of your new issue here. Some new feature stuff, subscription, and I'm just going to ignore everything except for maybe the download manager, a nice option to check. So if your readers know they're going on an airplane, on a flight, and they want to watch some videos that are not stored within the app, they can actually use the download manager to kind of pre-cache everything into your app and then read them when they're offline. Okay, so when I'm done with this, I'll just say save changes. So saving here, and now everything should be fine. Let's have a look. If everything is fine, you'll see that green button up here. If there was a mistake, let's for example say something was wrong with the certificates, you would actually see a yellow warning here telling you what went wrong. But it looks like everything went right here. And what I want to do now is I want to submit this app. So I want to actually build this app. So I press that button. It will ask me again, are you sure that the app version number is correct? Because that's something very important when you build apps. It's built into the app, and Apple takes that to kind of find out what kind of an update that is. So make sure this is correct and then press yes. Might take a second or so, and what you can see now is a yellow bar telling you an application build is in progress. So in the background, there's an automated process that's now building your app. And I'm going to switch to the iPad to actually show you what you will get. You will get an email address, an email to your address, that will tell you whether it succeeded or didn't succeed, this build process, and also telling you why it didn't succeed, if it failed somehow. And if it succeeded, you will get the app to install, and I'll show you that on my iPad. So I switched to a program called Reflection, which is showing you the my iPad mirrored. So the only thing you can't really see on my Mac is my finger moving. So I'll just hide the rest. And what I got here is an email actually to let me know that my Matthias Daily publication has been completed successfully. So I have a test app, and I can see the URL here. You can see that here, it's listed here. And you should really view that, that link or this email on your iPad or on the device that you want to actually test it on, because all I need to do is I'll tab it, and you can see I'll get redirected to a website where it says install the app. And there should be everything in there, including these provisioning profiles. If this fails now when I tab it, what I actually need to do is I first need to install the provisioning profile manually, which I can do doing via iTunes. So just connect your device to your Mac, drag the provisioning profile into iTunes, sync, and then it should be fine. But normally this works. So you can see this really boring icon I did down here with a reflection to make it a bit nicer. I should probably have done a nicer one. But I see the 105 app version that I have here. I see the size of only the app, so not the content. And the only thing I need to do is tab install application. It says, okay, do you want to do that? I say install, and there on my iPad you can see that it's downloading. I see this app icon. I can see it's downloading and installing then. And if everything went fine, I should actually see my app and I can test it. Installation. And there we are. So I can test my icon. I can see whether it worked perfectly. I will tab it to open it. I can see my splash screen. And here I can actually see the content I created within my app. I can see the rest of the app. I haven't even created a nice thumbnail for my issue, so don't worry about that one. I tab on view, and now I can actually view my publication. Just have a single page here. My issue that I've created in webinar part 1, I can see that here on my iPad within my own app. So that's all you really need to do to test that. And that's also a way how you could actually make that work for your customers. So if you want a customer to test the app that you've created the app for, just make sure that you use a provisioning profile that has the UDID of the iPad or the iPhone of your customer. Send them that link and they can just install it, and this way they can test it. And you can also see notifications already working. I have this little badge with the one now that I have new content in here. Perfect. Okay, so I'm basically finished. I created my test app. If I go back to Safari, let me hide reflections here. If I want to do the app for the App Store, the only thing I need to change is really my distribution provisioning profile. It shouldn't have my ad hoc in there anymore like I have it right now. I should have my App Store mobile provisioning profile in here, build it again, and then submit it to Apple. And that's how we come to the third portal. So third portal is set up Apple's iTunes Connect and then send the app to Apple. Let's go to itunesconnect.apple.com, and I'm just going to put in my details and quickly blank my screen. Okay, here we are. So when you use this portal the first time, Apple is going to ask you for contracts, tax, and banking. So some information you need to fill out. You for sure need the contract iOS free applications. You also need the contract iOS paid applications in case that you want to sell something via the iTunes store. And what you don't need is iAd network unless you want to create ads through Apple. So these two you need to set up. And then you're done. The next thing you need to do, and that's really the only thing you need to do, is manage your application. So when I click on that, what you can see is I already have 2 apps set up that I created earlier, and that's what I need to do now too. So I'll add my new app. I can choose a default language. Maybe it's going to be English. App name is webinar. And if you're not sure what this app name is, just click on the little question mark and Apple's portal is going to tell you what that is. That's how it's going to show in the App Store. SKU number, just anything that makes sense to you. It's never going to show. Apple is also explaining you what that does. That's something for your own purposes here. And bundle ID basically is this reverse URL bundle name that you've created. And iTunes Connect is only going to show you the apps that you've set up in the development portal, developer.apple.com, so you can't really mistake something here. And what I created here was the webinar English, and you can see it here. And Apple's going to give you a warning once you submit it. That's it. I'll say, okay, fine. I'll continue. Briefly wait for the portal to update. Okay, get an error message here that I've used that app name before, or somebody used the app name before, which is fine. I'm just going to choose another one. And the next thing I need to do is I need to specify when is this thing available, this app. So that could be, let's assume you want to launch this on the 1st of January. So you can actually set that on the 1st of January, or you can just leave it the way it is, because then it means it's going to be available as soon as Apple approves it. Pricing tier, if it's free, select free. If you want to charge for it, you can't actually set a price yourself. You have to go by Apple's pricing tiers. So you can see I can choose 99 cents, dollar cents, and then I get 70 cents out of Apple. And how much would that be in other countries? You can see here. So if you sell that in the UK, it's actually 69 pence and you get 42 out of it. So that's how you set up these pricing tiers here with Apple. I'll leave that free, so I don't really care whether there's a discount for educational institutions, yes or not. No, and I'll just go continue. Version number 105, important. Copyright, yes, that's me. Primary category, and that's maybe, let's say, business. That's important so that users in the iTunes store can browse categories. You can see what's the most sold app in category business. And maybe the second one I'll do is reference here. And afterwards I need to do ratings. Ratings is very important because that's how Apple classes an application to be appropriate for certain age groups. And if you have parental settings set on your iPad, then minors can't download apps depending on the content. So if I don't have any violence here, I'll just say no. You can see I get an app rating of 4 years and above. Sexual content or nudity, remember there could be ads in your app depending on what kind of app you create. So then there might be infrequent nudity in there. So then please choose that, because otherwise Apple will reject your app. And you can see it jumps up here to 12 plus. Same thing for alcohol or tobacco. If you live in a country where that's allowed to put ads of alcohol and tobacco in there, then please choose that and you go up to 12. The rest I'm just going to leave here with none. So I have a 12 plus app. I'm going to describe this app. This is showing you how to create HTML5-based apps, whatever. I'm not going to put a lot of things in here just because I don't have time. I advise you, please put in really good metadata, because that's how your customers will find you in the App Store and also will understand what kind of an app you're creating. And so it's really your marketing effort. So put that in here. Keywords could be HTML5, InDesign, QuarkXPress, whatever you want to have in here. Support URL, so put your Quark.com or forms, quark.com in there. Put something in there that points to your website where your customers, your readers will get support. Same like the other ones, privacy maybe, contact information. So who is your contact? That should be listed in here. I'll just put myself in here. Country code. Review notes only for Apple, so should they know something, same like a demo account, if you have a login information, you should provide a username and password so Apple can check what you're doing here. And the rest I'm not going to do here. That's really your screenshots that show your app content and that your users, your readers, your customers will see in iTunes before they actually download, the large screenshots that they can see here. So again, I advise you to take really care, put compelling screenshots in there, because that's really how your users will decide whether they should go for your app or not. So I'll cancel out of that because I can't really go further without that. I'm just going to show you one of the apps I've already created. So what I have in here, view details, you can see there's everything I created. There's my screenshots, stuff like that. And that's how it will look like when you submitted that. Same thing for pricing, in-app purchase. I'm going to concentrate on that in another webinar, and all of that stuff that you set up here. And you also get the link to iTunes where you can see that. Once you're done, you should get a status waiting for upload. That means everything is set up in the iTunes store. All you need is that binary, so the app itself. And that's something you got when you tabbed on or clicked on the link in the email that appstudio.net sent you. You can download a file called that's an .ipa file. That's really your app that you need to submit to Apple. How are you going to submit that to Apple? Well, it's really easy. You need a program, an application called Application Loader. So let's load Application Loader. The easiest is you go via Xcode that you should have installed. You have a download link from Apple. When you go for developer.apple.com and you have purchased your development account, so I'm going to load Xcode here. Xcode is a programming environment which I don't really need because I'm not going to program here. All I need it for is for this application loader. So once Xcode loaded, you can go to the Xcode menu. open developer tool, and there is the application loader. So choose that one, let's hide the rest here. And what you see here is deliver your app. So I can just deliver my app by going here, clicking on that, say, what should I don't see the app I've set up here because I haven't submitted it in iTunes Connect now. So I have to choose one that I've already set up previously. And I'll see the screenshot here. I'll say next, and you can see all of my information again. I'll say choose, and that's why I now would have to select that IPA I downloaded and submit that to Apple. That's basically it. And then Apple will send you an email once they reviewed it, whether it's okay to go, whether it's approved, or whether there is problems in there, and Apple's going to tell you what kind of problems. It could be content problems that they don't understand what you're doing. They say it's not interactive enough for an app. And that's then the typical things that you need to look and resolve. And once you've resolved it, that's when Apple is going to approve it. And this app is going to be in the App Store. Well, and that really concludes how you create an app with App Studio Net. So you create your app, you submit it to Apple, and you're basically done. And of course, you should have your content in your app, which you can test and see whether it's working, and then you can submit that. So if you have more questions, you're welcome to send me an email. You can see my email address down here. And what you could also do is, if you have more questions, you can go to Twitter and ask us, or go to Facebook and have comments about it, or go to our forums if you have a bit more questions and you need more help there. You're welcome to ask any kind of question, and we're trying to help you there so that you can submit your HTML5 based app content with your app. And this leaves me with thanking you for your time. I hope you found this interesting what I showed you, and we're looking forward to see your app in the App Store. Thank you.